Right, so something a little bit different for this little segment. So we're not going to catch no fish for once.
How dare you?
But yeah, what we want to talk about is a very basic sort of how we'd approach a peg, not a singularly specific peg for a certain species or whatever, just the basic areas of a peg and what you're looking for during them areas.
That's it, mate, because obviously, it's coming colder, we're getting into autumn now, it certainly feels like it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And obviously, I think gone are the days where you're sort of like putting quite a bit of bait in and waiting for the fish, knowing that full well that they're going to come into that.
Yeah, that's old school, isn't it? That's sort of natural venue fishing.
Definitely.
Like, attract the shoal, catch the fish. It doesn't work on commercial fisheries. You're not trying to attract the shoal of fish. They're already present in your peg.
Definitely. You know, that's the way commercials are stocked, so it's all about putting little bits of bait in and finding out how they're going to respond to it, isn't it?
Yes,
and that's
definitely.
how we're going to approach these swims today.
Yeah. So,
yeah, yours is a little bit different to mine, and you've got sort of like an island that you could reach with a pole, but obviously you've got a crosswind, so
yeah, but just as a sort of a normal island peg is what we've got to stand with.
Yeah.
What distance that's at, who knows? Whether it's within pole range or feeder range, it's irrelevant. It's the areas in between leading up to the island and where you need to focus on.
Definitely.
So for me, I'd keep things simple. Say, I'm a big believer, like we mentioned before, of starting short.
Yeah.
I love doing that simply because I can sit here and watch everyone. I can see if there's any fish feeding and it doesn't upset all the good bits of me peg.
And that's a big thing you like doing. You like watching people, don't you, for the first sort of like
yeah, absolutely.
10, 15 minutes of the match. You'll be fishing away, but you'll be watching, see what's going on. As soon as someone starts, you know, sort of clattering a few fish out, you're straight on it.
Yeah, they make decisions for you.
Right.
And other people will help you, whether it's in a match or even in a pleasure session. If people are catching down the edge, odds are there's fish present down your edge. If someone's catching shallow, I mean, they help you understand what to do next and what can be best on a day, and they also help you understand what not to do.
Yeah, definitely.
If someone does something a little bit drastic or a bit positive,
and it's all about making the right decisions at the right time as well, isn't it?
Of course it is. Of course it is.
You know, obviously the fish are responding to one particular method on one day. The next time you go, it might not be. So it's all about, you know, obviously having that as a backup, but then making sure you've got something else in your army to go to.
Yeah.
You know, different swims and what have you.
It is. You've always got another option. But right, well, let's go into a basic session.
Go ahead, mate. Go ahead.
On what how we'd fish things. So for me, starting short at this time of year, it's still worthwhile.
Yeah.
So probably sometime
what kind
in
of depths
November.
would you say you're looking for, or?
So I'm looking for, ideally, generally short, you're going to be looking at somewhere between 3 and 6 foot, depending on the venue. Who knows what? It's going to be somewhere in that sort of vicinity. What I'm really looking for is a nice bottom.
So you mean like you're going to be fishing onto a slope, or you don't want it soft or obviously silt?
It's avoiding the silt if possible.
Right, so obviously you want to be back up the slope where the silt's not
Yes,
coming.
if possible. Okay. So again, short's quite a vague term. That could be anywhere from top 4 to top 8.
Right,
8 metres, sorry.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that area. But yeah, I want a hard bottom, simply because I'm not a believer that the fish just want to be on that bit. They'll feed wherever we throw bait.
Yeah.
It's making them easy to catch for us. If you're on a harder bottom and on an incline, then it's so much easier for a fish to eat your bait.
Yeah.
On a hard bottom, the bait's visual,
so
it doesn't get hidden in any silt, in any rubbish that's kicking up. But also, and this is our cameraman that's taught me this, is that when a fish is feeding on a sloping bottom, it's much happier because it doesn't have to upend.
Yeah.
So it's straight into it, eat your bait, and you get proper bites.
What about depths-wise then, Jay? What would you go for? Because I know we always say in summertime, ideally, certainly snake lakes, you don't really want to be anything over sort of like 2 foot. Because the line isn't far lookers. What kind of depth would you look for on them slopes and what have you? Is it just whatever it is, it is?
Again, I'd have everything covered and see what mood they're in.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
right.
This time of year, anything can be right. They could be in 6 foot, they could be in 2 foot.
To be fair, yeah, 'cause it's only sort of like just over 4 foot here. If that's all they've got, that's all they've got. Yeah. Whether it's summer or winter. You know what I mean? So, right, yeah.
So it's whatever's your peg's got, you have to cover the depths. Cause it's been amazing. I've fished places in the past. At Brookside for one up the road.
Right.
It's been January and the fish want to be in this. But it makes sense though, because it's what's going to warm up the quickest.
Yeah, to be fair,
so
yeah.
Every day's different. You never know exactly where they're going to be. And again, that's probably the first thing worth talking about. When you sit on your peg, regardless of what you've got, is what weather's been like.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's been boiling hot on it. Then all of a sudden, these last couple of weeks, it's proper gone down to 5, 6 degrees. Had a lot of cold rain at night time. So it's where you'd start off your session.
Yeah.
Talk us through yours and where you're going to start off.
I'm going to start short in the deepest water. That's what if I was sat in a proper session.
See what's happening, see what the response of the fish is.
Yes.
If you're not getting bites, obviously that might mean that they're in shallow water, so that's when you chase them up in shallow water.
Absolutely. Well, there's only going to be two ways that they behave. They'll either nothing will happen, meaning that there's no fish in that depth or that close to me,
Yeah.
which can often happen when
Yeah.
it gets a bit colder. Or there's lots of fish there, and I know that that's the right depth to be in. I mean, they
Right.
want to be in the deepest or towards the deeper water.
Mate, they're all going to be snarled up in my peg, putting casters.
With all them casters, there's going to be a lot up there. But yeah, so you can go from there. Your short line's going to tell you where to go next.
Right, okay.
And for me, so that's my starting point, and then you make decisions. What you tend to find is your shorter line produces some fish in most situations, and then fizzles regardless.
Right.
It always does, naturally, because fish sort of they're feeding at the start of the session, and then they fizzle out a bit middle of the day and they swim about. That's when your longer lines come into it.
Right, okay. So as that water starts to obviously warm up throughout the day, they'll come into it and what have you.
Yeah, but it'll just make the fish behave. Yeah, the fish will get out your way, generally for me. And your second and third hour of a session is your tricky bit.
Right, okay.
At this time of year, again, it's when you go to your furthest points that you're fishing, be that a feeder to the island, a long pole line, whatever, and that's your tick over line.
Right, so I'm going to throw a span in the works now, Jay, because it's what I like to do. And this is the beauty, like, why fishing is so diverse and everyone fishes different. I always think, like, with the anglers walking around the lake, the fish like to back off a bit. So that's why I pretty much always start off long and then I work my way back. You know what I mean?
It's not wrong.
Like, who's to say it's right, it's wrong, you know? Can't argue with this man's record here, but it's just something I've always done. I've never liked starting short. Certainly the way I'll feed anyway, certainly in today's case, I'm going to be loose feeding that line short and I want a lot of fish there.
Yeah.
You know, certainly with the baits that I'm doing. But even so, I want to start off long and then work my way back. It's interesting how both fish completely different, isn't it?
But you're fishing your short line, how I'll fish it later on.
Yeah.
I mean, you're almost eliminating it from your starting plan.
Yeah.
You go straight out to the dicky period, which fair play, it's just missing out on them couple of fish short, but you replace them with fish long potentially.
Definitely.
All depends on your venue, whether they back off or not. Everywhere's different, isn't it?
Yeah.
Depends how big the lake is. But yeah, I'm exactly the same. I'll go to my negative lines long, spend my time on them, as we do, catch whatever, shallow, whatever, and then they come back short, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
then you can.
It's that time of day, innit? You always get that time of day period where they'll come short and certainly come into the margins.
Yeah.
And that's usually when you're going to do your big weights.
Yeah.
Jay, talk us through sort of your feeding process as well. Then how you'd like, how much you'd introduce at the start, little amounts, big amounts.
To begin with, as little as I possibly can.
Right. Okay.
So again, we've touched on it before. I'm all about odds of getting a bite.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I feed 20 pellets, it's 20 to 1 for me to get a bite.
Definitely.
So I want to feed the minimal amount to both attract a fish and to get a bite.
Yeah.
Which can be a bit of a grey area. It can be difficult because the more you try and attract a fish, the more you build up the bait on the bottom, the less odds of you getting a bite.
Right.
So for me, it's put a trap in, sit and wait, and go from there.
Definitely. We need to, I mean, we brushed up on it this morning during the intro with how silty some of these venues are. Now, it's very important that you get used to, you know, how the fish are responding, and as soon as you start getting sort of liners and far lookers or just not getting bites, I can guarantee if it's a very silty bottom like it is on here, it's because the fish would have scoured the bottom out, it might have gone a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
It's mad, isn't it?
Oh,
It'll only be in like a little tiny area, but they'll hollowed it out. And you know, you've got to be on top of it to like pick up on things like that. We see it all the time as coaches. You know, you've been getting a bite of chuck in the deep water down the middle of something on a snake lake where it's real soft bottom, and all of a sudden nothing, just getting loads of liners.
Yeah.
So you can guarantee you put a plummet on, the float will disappear.
The bubbles generally give that away, don't they? If you're getting bubbles, it always gets deeper, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, mate. And you know, like again, it's just sort of like the more you go out and do something, it's stored. Well, it's never stored in my head. It always like, it's gone. Where's it gone? But no, it just gets stored, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And then you know it for later on and what to look for.
Right. Another little thing I want to go in aside a bit. So we've talked about all of them.
Yeah.
So the last thing to think about is your margins this time of year as well, isn't it? So for me, they are nowhere near as prolific as they are in the summer.
To be fair, margins, it's always been one of them for me. It's always been like a bit of an iffy subject. I'll always feed in match conditions, but you know, I love fishing shallow. So when they turn up shallow, I think they're far easier to catch shallow in a cross where they're not getting spooked. Whereas down the margins, I think it's the lure. You see that big swirl, that big tail, they just sort of lure you in. But unless you can get and you know present the bait right to them in sort of like shallow water, they can be a nightmare at times, can't they?
Yeah, I think it's the reduced numbers of fish as well that come in the edge.
Right.
That make it even harder to catch it this time.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's the depths that you target down the margins that can be so much more important at this time of year than the summer. I mean, the summer, it's all about, for me, find that.
Yeah.
Shallow as you can get tight in.
Definitely.
That's where you want to be. But it's so interesting at this time when it's going cooler, just dropping down
fish will
into
look out a
2, 3, 4 foot.
Would you still look for sort of like obviously going into the spare pegs, or would you quite happy if you found 3 foot into reeds and that? Would you just go into that?
It depends. I wouldn't ever want on a margin, especially look at today's case where it's really overgrown. I'd never want a big depth on the edge of anything.
Right. Okay.
I want an option of. I'd love a slope.
So you can chase them in.
Yeah, I can choose what point of the slope. I think that's where people go wrong down the edge, is choosing areas next to features.
Yeah.
Which really limits your options of being able to move about in depth.
Yeah.
If you can go to a peg or a bit of a clean bank that we've got up your end,
I want best peg again.
you can have options at what depth to go in.
Definitely.
And just having sort of versatile rigs that allow you to cover things like that, they put so many more fish in your net this time of year, don't they?
Yeah, they do, and it's that getting that feeding right in it. You know, I love loose feeding, but edge fishing, it's all about being nice and strict, because obviously you'll be on a slope. It's all about sneaking that little bit of bait.
Of course it is. Set your trap, catch your fish.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's about, say, finding the depth that they're happy coming in, and you're getting that bite, isn't it?
Yeah, mate. I just can't wait to go and catch some fish. Basically, I've done talking to him. I just want to catch some fish.
Right, go on. Let's
Can
go
we?
do that then. You go and catch some on your casters now.
Yes. Cheers, mate.